Hi, welcome to the grades 11 and 12 book video. I'm Shannon Whiteside, Program Director for the Alveary, and I'm here today with a few of our curriculum developers, Carrie Forney, Catherine Avery, and Danielle Merritt-Sinceri. This is the 9th year of the Alveary, and we are so excited to give you a preview of some of the books we will be reading for the 24-25 school year. If you want to learn more about the Alveary, you can browse our viewbook, which is linked in the video description below. The viewbook also contains a free term of composer study lessons for you to try out. I want to reiterate that we are just highlighting some of the books that are part of our curriculum. There are many more. I also want to remind you that although the books are an important part of the lesson, there is more to a lesson than reading and narrating books. In school education, Mason writes, "The business of the teacher is to put his class in the right attitude toward their book by a word or two of his own interest in the matter contained, of his own delight in the manner of the author." While Charlotte Mason cautions us as educators against the temptation to over-explain, she encourages teachers to share brief comments to rouse students' interest and prepare them to engage with the lesson. In Alveary lesson plans, we often give discussion questions, pertinent background information, links to pictures or maps, and other similar activities so you can put your class and yourself in the right attitude toward the lesson. For high school students who are often working more independently, the lesson plans themselves often function as the instrument to help a student rouse their interest in the day's work.
Yeah, I think that's a helpful thing to remember. One other note before we jump in, I think that it would be helpful to maybe take a minute and watch our videos on how we choose books. We cover questions that we ask ourselves when deciding about books each year. And that will just give you background information on our goals and the information that you need to also tailor the curriculum for your students. So we suggest that you click over to those videos now, and we'll see you back here soon.
Let's begin with Bible. Charlotte Mason considered Bible lessons a crucial part of a student's life. She wanted every day to bring new thoughts of God, new hopes of heaven. She did not want Bible lessons to be moralistic and for students to feel like the Bible is a list of do's and don'ts, but for students to know God as their King and their Father, and Jesus as the Savior of the world. From 7th grade through high school, students read through the Old Testament chronologically. After reading Acts and a harmonized version of the Gospels in 7th and 8th, high school students move into the epistles and the rest of the New Testament. One of the Gospels is read each year as well. All passages are studied with the aid of Bible resources and commentaries as appropriate.
And one fascinating addition to the program for this year in Bible is a First Nations version of the New Testament in English. And the introduction from the book states that it was created as a gift to all English-speaking First Nations people and to the entire sacred family, which is the body of the chosen one. It was birthed out of a desire to provide an English Bible that connects in a culturally relevant way to the traditional heart languages of the over 6 million English-speaking First Nations people of North America. So just like reading a Bible in a second language provides insights and perspectives, so this too, even though in English, it will provide a similar experience. So we hope that it not only helps us all to see First Nations people as fellow image bearers, but that we might see Jesus, or Creator Sets Free, as he's called, with new eyes. So another addition is the inclusion of Old Testament Today, a journey from ancient context to contemporary relevance by John Walton and Andrew Hill. This book, along with the other Bible helps, will be used for all the years of high school to provide context and guidance while reading. And for church history this year, the 11th and 12th graders will read a book called Bullies and Saints, an honest look at the good and evil of Christian history. There are some events in this time period that are hard to read about, as there were terrible things done in the name of Christ. Dixon does a wonderful job of pointing out that Jesus gave the world a beautiful melody of charity, humility, and human dignity. And while many of his followers have been tone deaf, many others have sung the tune and transformed the world. His perspective is encouraging and hopeful.
What a good find.
Yeah, that's been a really fascinating read.
I also remember the first time I read the First Nations version, I read John 1, like that first chapter of John. And yeah, I don't think it's such a beautiful and fresh rendition.
Mm-hmm. It's great. So then moving into art, all students will be studying the same main artist over the year, but the lessons increase in depth as the students grow. And then this year, we're studying paintings from the Tang Dynasty in term 1, and then works by Botticelli in term 2, and Hans Holbein the Younger in term 3. High school students are also reading this book, Rembrandt in the Wind, over the year, which discusses other artists from the time period, as well as some they've studied in earlier years and some that'll be new ones. The subtitle of the book is Learning to Love Art Through the Eyes of Faith. The author, who's a pastor, states the following chapters are part art history, part biblical study, part philosophy, and part analysis of the human experience, but they are all story. And we are excited about how the students' relationship with art will grow through this book and through engaging in another year of picture study.
Let's look at architecture. One of the fascinating books in architecture this year is Brunicelli's Dome. You are brought right into the medieval world of Florence and learn all about the people of the time and what life was like as the dome took shape eventually high above the city. I had the privilege to visit Florence last summer, and I saw the dome, and it is beautiful, and it's a fascinating story that I'm glad our students can read about and hopefully one day visit.
Yeah, well, and I think that that ties in nicely just to show the connections across the curriculum, because in geography and in history, they're reading, if all of those subjects are giving students a broader picture of the time, and literature, handicrafts, so many things. So for geography, we'll talk about that a bit more. In grade 11 and in 12, they have the choice between two books of epic historical adventure. So one of them is Brendan's Voyage, and the other one is Hawaii Rising. And for both 11th and 12th grade, they also read When Asia Was the World, which takes them on journeys across Asia with a whole host of characters. And one really interesting thing about the book is that each chapter is based on an actual memoir from the time, from that Asian world, about 500 to 1500. And it's also just a fun connection, like I was saying, to other aspects of the curriculum, because we're studying Chinese art and picture study, and we're reading some poetry from that same time period, from the Tang and Sung dynasties in the literature lessons. So it's a fun connection that's happening in all those different aspects. And then for regional geography, they are reading sections of Across This Land. And that book is spread out over 3 years, and just bits of it are read over like a term each year or so. And that gives students just a greater depth as they look at places across the US and Canada.
So this year we're studying 800 to 1650 AD in US and world history, and 3500 to 550 BC in ancient history. In history, we're starting a book that all the high school students will read over this year and next, called American Colonial History by Thomas Kidd, who is a well-published Christian historian and has taught history for many years. In this book, he tells the story through the themes of religion and conflict, and he'll be a great guide as we walk through this time period. As always, we strive to find many voices from the time period to better understand the events from different points of view. We include a fictionalized autobiography of Julian of Norwich, Pocahontas in the true story of Pocahontas, written from oral tradition passed down by her own people, one of the great epics from medieval Western Africa in Sundiata, and from the conquistadors themselves in Conquistador Voices. Another fascinating book is called Shakespeare's Restless World. Instead of drawing principally from literary resources, this book looks at various objects that help us get into the minds or experience of the people that came to watch Shakespeare's plays when they were first being performed. Another book put out by the Museum of the Bible called The World David Knew uses a fictionalized account of the days around David's death to help us understand the politics, economy, geography, the role of women, and the conflicts that those living at that time would have known and experienced. We're also using several other books, bringing the times to life, such as Mesopotamia, The Invention of the City, which details the growth of the land between the rivers.
We've also been fortunate to build a relationship with Dr. Tracy McKenzie, who is a respected historian and professor of history at Wheaton College. We have valued his insight about the study of history, and he has helped us realize one of the ways we show love for our neighbors who have different histories is to learn something about their past. We want to encourage our students to bring an attitude of love and humility to the study of history. So our students in 10th through 12th grade will be reading his book, A Little Book for New Historians, as well as The First Thanksgiving.
Going back to, as we start talking about literature, Danielle mentioned Shakespeare's Restless World a second ago. And one exciting thing about this time period is that we get to study Shakespeare in his historical context, since he was living and writing plays during about the term 3 time period. And so high school students are reading Taming of the Shrew and Richard III. And that actually ties really well to another book in literature that we're reading, which is Daughter of Time. And that is just a fascinating book that helps us think about the nature of history. And I don't want to spoil the story for you, but teaser is that maybe Richard III wasn't as evil as Shakespeare thought. So in addition, we are also reading a number of source documents in both literature and history this year from the Portable Medieval Reader, which just helps reduce the number of links and lesson plans. You know, there's a lot of different fascinating source documents, but that one is a great anthology. And we'll also include other essays and excerpts from authors like Bacon and Montaigne and Pascal that we will link in the lesson plans. Students are also reading from the Inferno from Dante's Divine Comedy. And I've misplaced my copy of the book, but we really like the translation by Anthony Esselin because it's particularly readable, and it also includes the original Italian on the left side of the page so that you can see some of the interesting poetic features that are not really visible in English. Another book that we're reading is called Everything Sad is Untrue. Both the 11th and 12th graders are reading it. And although at first glance, this book is about a present day Persian boy and his family who immigrated to Oklahoma, it's actually a heart-wrenching and beautiful book, which reaches back all the way to our time period and will give students not only an understanding of some of the historical events during medieval times and famous literary works like the Arabian Nights and Persian culture and storytelling, but it also just demonstrates really beautifully how the past informs the present and how all the events and the people that we're learning about this year are relevant as we interact with our neighbors today. And incidentally, it shows how God is working through all of history as well. Another book we're reading is The Making of the Poem. This one's in the poetry lessons. And this book is organized around a number of different poetic forms like sonnet or ballad, or a villanelle, and it gives a short explanation of how the form works and the history of it, when it started, and then just a number of those poems from different authors. So it gives students just some structure as they read poems from the time period, and also helps them as they experiment with writing verse themselves. And I just think it will help them continue to grow in their appreciation and understanding of poetry. So that one will be really fun.
Let's continue talking about English. And English students continue to work on honing their skills at a wide variety of written forms, from descriptive writing to summaries to essays. We'll be using Michael Clay Thompson's Academic Writing 2, As a reference, the students work on citing sources, understanding logical fallacies, and a few larger papers over the year to prepare them for academic writing in college. We also use Steering the Craft in 11th grade to help students learn and pay attention to narrative techniques in their own and others' writing. This also helps encourage students to keep having fun with words in their narrations and compositions. In 12th grade, students read Caring for Words in a Culture of Lies, which we really like to help students think further about the ethics of communication and how we love each other with our words.
Yeah. And I think we've also been thinking a lot this year about how to make sure students are equipped to use technology well and not just be entertained by it. But so we're adding more of a focus on having students type some compositions and create infographics and PowerPoints throughout the year as well, in those, particularly in those English lessons, but across the curriculum.
Let's think about science. We've designed a flexible high school science program that we're sharing this year, so you'll want to check out our high school science program intro video for more on that. But within that flexible program, we're recommending physics for our 11th or 12th graders, depending on their math placement. Now, the catch is that I don't actually have a book to show you for this course because we're excited for the Living Lecture series from Math Without Borders. There is a reference or a supplement for the course, but the meat of the course is the video series. Mr. Chandler does a really fantastic job teaching this course in a very relevant and practical way. Students learn about the concepts of basic physics by analyzing and modeling the moving objects in the world around them. And I think that our students are just going to love it. So in addition to physics, we have a number of elective courses that students in these upper grades, 11th and 12th, can take based on their interests and their own goals. Carrie, what are some of your favorite books from those elective courses?
I have so many favorites, but one of them is this Micro Life that is in the microbiology elective. And the photograph, the photography in this book is amazing. And even better than a screen, the photos bring the biology to life. So take a look at this one. This, guess what you think this is. Anybody?
Looks like some sort of strange tire or something.
Yeah, no. This is a snail's tongue. I mean, once again, who knew?
Wow.
It's amazing. And it just goes through everything. They have teeth. Snails have teeth on their tongues like this. They scrape the plant surface to get tiny pieces that they can swallow. So this book is full of amazing things. It just goes through the biology, but the world, and looking at all these different aspects with amazing pictures and just what we can see now because of the ability to get down at that level. So I love that book. Another one from the botany course is called Seeing Seeds. And it delves deep into the world, this wonderful world, showing the variety and the complexity and the beauty of how God designed plants to reproduce. So take a look at these stunning clematis seeds. Look at that. Who knew such beauty in these little seeds? I mean, that's what this whole book just kind of brings this world to life as well, and showing that, the beauty of how God designed these things to work. So for each course, we have a lab component or field studies that emphasize that emphasize the fact that there's more than just the reading, right? They need to go outside and get outside and see the things for themselves. So in astronomy, there's a book called 100 Things to See in the Night Sky, like that. And it is so helpful for guiding observations. It tells when and where to look for these celestial bodies, and it just makes the whole sort of process less intimidating, right? Because you can look up and just be like, I have no idea where to go or what to look at or how to even find anything. And he really gives very good instructions on, okay, here's what to look for first, here's how to get your bearings, and then here's how to find the other things. So that one's been really one of my favorites for making it not so daunting and actually being able to feel like you're getting to learn a little bit of your way around the sky. All right, then in this one called in the geology elective, there is this book called 101 American Geosites that it just does a great job of identifying places to visit that maybe might be just minutes from where you live and you just didn't even know it was there. Or it might be near where you might be traveling for a holiday or something, or somewhere that you might want to visit and take an actual trip to. So it takes the subject to the streets and it helps the students start to interact not just with books, but again, with the things of science to help their relationship with these subjects to grow. And then our new course in advanced nature study uses a renowned naturalist, Roseanne Hansen's book called Master of Field Arts to take nature study and journaling to the next level. It has fascinating sections on tracking and pigments and sketching and all sorts of things. And we include options for citizen science in that as well. So that's we keep trying to add different aspects so that each student can have a science course that will be appropriate and fits them and really allows them to grow in this area.
So many great options. It's going to be hard for our students to choose. Well, we are excited about the books for next year. We hope you are excited as well. Thank you for joining us in this preview. You can find more samples on our website, a free set of lesson plans, and more information about the Alveary in our view book and on our YouTube channels. We are excited for the adventures that await both teacher and students this next year. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.